You are standing at the top of your run-up.
Right.
It's June 2024, Bridgetown, Barbados. And the equation has been distilled down to this just absolute agonizing essence. South Africa needs 16 runs off 6 deliveries to win the T20 World Cup. You have the ball in your hand.
The ultimate pressure cooker.
Exactly. The overwhelming, crushing weight of over 1 billion expectations is resting entirely on your shoulders. If you execute, you secure immortality.
Yeah.
But if you miss your length by a fraction of an inch, you were the blame for a generation.
Which is terrifying. And the psychological kicker here, just a month prior to this, millions of those exact same fans who are praying for your success right now, well, they were ruthlessly booing you in your own home stadium.
It's wild. Which brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. Welcome in, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
So we have this really comprehensive stack of sources documenting the turbulent, highly scrutinized career of India's premier fast-bowling all-rounder, Hardik Pandya.
Right. And we're not just going to, recite the highlight reels today. No, definitely not. We need to dissect the actual anatomy of how this self-described expressive kid from Gujarat evolved into the world's #1 T20 international all-rounder.
Yeah. I mean, how do you actually build an athlete capable of surviving the whiplash-inducing highs and lows of modern cricket fandom, plus the physical demands and massive public controversies?
So where do we even begin to unpack that kind of psychological resilience?
You start by looking at the environment that forged him, because that resilience required to bowl that final over in Barbados. That wasn't developed in some fancy international training camp.
Right, it goes way back.
It was built decades earlier out of pure, unadulterated financial necessity. When you look at his foundations, you're looking at a scenario where failure was systematically removed as an option before he even really understood what the sport was.
Yeah, the sources outline this family decision that is, frankly, just difficult to comprehend in its sheer risk. So Hardik was born in Surat in October 1993. And when he was just 5 years old, his father, Himanshu, had a functioning, established car finance business, and he just shut it down entirely.
Completely closed up shop.
Yeah. He uprooted the family and moved them to Vadodara for one specific reason, to get Hardik and his brother, Krunal, into Kiran Moore's cricket academy.
I mean, consider the immense psychological weight of that action. This isn't a parent just buying a kid expensive gear or driving them to a weekend clinic.
Right.
This is a family pushing all of their chips to the center of the table on the athletic potential of a 5-year-old and his brother. Himanshu literally took a job as a loan consultant just to scratch together a living.
And the margins were razor thin. Like, they were living in a rented apartment in Gorwa. The boys were traveling to the grounds in a secondhand car.
Yeah.
Hardik even dropped out of high school in the 9th grade because the singular focus was cricket. So how does that environment shape a kid's relationship with the game? Like, is it still a game to them at that point?
Not really, no. It fundamentally alters the neurological wiring of a competitor. When you know that your family's financial security, your dad's sacrifice, and your own lack of an education all hinge on your ability to perform, every single net session becomes high stakes.
That is heavy.
It breeds this relentless, almost combative survival instinct. The sport isn't a passion anymore, it's an existential requirement. So that foundational pressure creates a player who does not intimidate easily. They've been operating under the threat of ruin since childhood.
That survival instinct is fascinating, especially when you look at how his actual skills developed. Because we know him today as this terrifying fast bowler who hits the deck hard, right?
Exactly.
But our sources say that up until the age of 18, Hardik was actually a leg spinner.
Yeah, he was bowling slow, flighted wrist spin.
Right. And it was only at the insistence of the Baroda coach, Sanath Kumar, that he switched to fast bowling. Mechanically, how is it even possible to make a shift of that magnitude so late in development?
From a biomechanical standpoint, it's staggering. By age 18, a cricketer's motor pathways are deeply entrenched. Leg spin is all about finesse.
Yeah, wrist action and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The contortion of the wrist, the precise release, a run-up that's basically just a rhythmic amble. The physical toll is pretty minimal. Fast bowling is the polar opposite. It's a violent, explosive generation of full-body kinetic energy.
Because you're essentially turning a sprint into a localized physical collision at the crease.
Spot on. You're bounding to the crease, slamming a rigid front foot into the turf, which sends these massive ground reaction forces up your shin, into your knee, and right into your lower back.
Oh.
And then your core has to violently rotate and your arm snaps down. To completely reprogram your muscle memory from delicate wrist work to that brutal kinetic chain at 18 and do it well enough to play international cricket. That indicates raw, freakish adaptability.
But adapting physically was only half the battle for him. The sources note he faced significant friction within the traditional cricketing establishment early on.
Oh, definitely.
He was actually dropped from his state age group teams for quote-unquote attitude problems. Hardik later categorized himself in an interview as just being an expressive child who couldn't hide his emotions.
Yeah.
So why does the traditional youth system struggle so much with that personality type?
Well, traditional state systems are inherently hierarchical. They rely on conformity, quiet compliance, deep respect for seniority. A player who wears his heart on his sleeve or questions tactics disrupts that fragile ecosystem.
So they see passion as defiance.
Precisely. Coaches at the youth level often misdiagnose intense, unpolished competitive drive as a behavioral issue. They want a soldier, not a maverick.
But the irony is, the exact traits that get you dropped from an under-19 team are the very traits required to survive the modern franchise era.
Exactly. The youth coach calls it an attitude problem, but a modern T20 franchise calls it box office. An athlete who refuses to be subdued is exactly the type who can walk into a stadium of 100,000 screaming fans and not shrink.
Right, the traditional system tried to suppress his nature, but the evolution of the game itself was about to provide the perfect stage for it. Which brings us to the proving ground. The Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, or SMAT. He'd been grinding away for Baroda since 2013. For an emerging player in the Indian system, what is the actual currency of that tournament?
The SMAT is basically the ultimate scouting arena. It's the filter through which the billion-dollar IPL franchises find their missing puzzle pieces.
Okay.
State formats like the Ranji Trophy test your endurance, but the SMAT tests your ability to execute high-variance skills under extreme time pressure. It's an audition for franchise wealth.
And his audition tape was spectacular. January 2016, he plays an innings against Vidarbha that forces the entire scouting network to sit up.
Oh yeah, the 8 sixes.
Yeah. He blasts 8 sixes on his way to an unbeaten 86. Hitting 8 sixes in a domestic T20 match isn't just a good day, it's a structural anomaly. What exactly is a franchise scout seeing when that happens?
They're seeing a solution to the most complex algebraic equation in franchise team building.
Because of the overseas player limit.
Exactly. The IPL mandates a strict limit of 4 overseas players. Teams usually use those slots on marquee foreign fast bowlers or top-order batsmen.
Right.
So, finding an Indian domestic player who can reliably bowl 4 overs of high-paced seam and who has the specific bat speed to clear the boundary at the death, it's like finding a unicorn. It completely balances the side.
That structural value explains why the Mumbai Indians drafted him and kept him from 2015 to 2021, and he wasted very little time justifying the investment.
You really didn't.
Let's look at the 2015 match against the Kolkata Knight Riders. High stakes, must win for Mumbai. Hardik is in his early 20s, sharing a locker room with global icons, and he dismantles the KKR bowling attack, scoring 61 off 31 balls. Man of the match.
Amazing.
How does the franchise environment accelerate a player's maturity compared to the state system that rejected him?
Because franchise cricket strips away the romanticism and the rigid hierarchy of the state system. It's a hyper-capitalist entertainment product driven entirely by results.
So they don't care about the attitude problem.
An IPR coach does not care if you celebrate too loudly, as long as your strike rate is north of 160 and your economy rate is manageable. The IPL validated his expressive nature.
Wow.
It threw him into situations where he had to win the game single-handedly. You either evolve a titanium-clad temperament in that environment within a single season, or you're discarded.
He didn't just thrive, he became intrinsic to Mumbai's identity. But the true test of an Indian cricketer isn't just being a clutch player. It's surviving the political and psychological gauntlet of captaincy.
Oh man, the captaincy saga.
It's one of the most astonishing corporate roller coasters in modern sports history. So ahead of the 2022 mega auction, Mumbai actually releases him. And the brand new Gujarat Titans draft him and name him captain.
Which was met with widespread skepticism at the time.
Right, because his public persona was this explosive, somewhat erratic match winner. He didn't have a track record of marshalling a fielding side or dictating strategic tempo.
But then look at the result. In 2022, the Gujarat Titans' very first year in existence, he leads them to the IPL title. The first captain to do that in an inaugural year since Shane Warne in 2008.
And he took them to the final again in 2023. Why did he succeed so comprehensively in that untested environment?
I really think it was the blank slate. When you inherit a legacy team, half your energy goes into navigating entrenched locker room politics. At Gujarat, there was no history.
He was the founding father of their culture.
Exactly. He could imprint his own philosophy, which turned out to be surprisingly calm and tactically astute, onto the squad from day one. He wasn't in someone else's shadow.
Which makes the corporate machinations of November 2023 so jarring. He gets traded back to Mumbai on a massive all-cash deal. Mumbai even had to trade Cameron Green to RCB just to free up salary cap space.
Yeah, the logistics of that trade were wild.
But the real bombshell was that Mumbai immediately named Pandya as captain, forcibly displacing Rohit Sharma,
Right.
a guy who delivered 5 titles and was basically a demigod to the Mumbai fan base.
It was a textbook example of corporate sports management, drastically miscalculating the emotional tribalism of their fan base.
The backlash was visceral. The 2024 season became a waking nightmare for him. He was continuously deafeningly booed in his own home stadium at the Wankhede.
By his own fans.
Yeah, and the team completely collapsed, finishing dead last. His stats took a huge hit. He averaged 18 with the bat, and his economy rate ballooned to 10.75. Mechanically speaking, how does home crowd hostility actually degrade a player's physical execution?
Think about the cognitive load on a batsman. When a bowler is charging in at 140 kilometers per hour, a batsman relies on absolute mental stillness. Their brain is calculating trajectory, dip, and swing in a fraction of a second. Normally, a home crowd provides a psychological safety net that allows the player to remain in a state of flow.
But when that crowd turns hostile,
When 40,000 people wearing your team's colors are screaming for your downfall, it creates violent cognitive dissonance. The brain perceives it as a threat environment. Cortisol spikes, muscles tighten infinitesimally. That fraction of a second of mental processing is suddenly polluted. A tightened forearm means your bat swing is a millisecond late. That drop to an 18 average wasn't a loss of talent. It was a brain buckling under localized psychological trauma. His fight-or-flight response was permanently engaged.
it would have permanently broken a lesser athlete. But to understand how he eventually crawled out of that abyss, we have to look at the armor he forged on the international stage. Because long before the Mumbai crowd turned on him, his international career had stress-tested his nerves in unimaginable ways.
Oh, for sure.
He makes his T20 international debut in January 2016. His very first wicket is Chris Lynn, a guy known for destroying fast bowlers.
An immediate indicator that he wasn't intimidated by the jump in weight class.
Exactly. But the true revelation of his psychological makeup came just months later. The 2016 World T20, India versus Bangladesh. This is one of the most legendary clutch scenarios in modern cricket.
One of my absolute favorites.
Bangladesh requires 2 runs from 3 deliveries to win and knock India out. Pandya is tasked with bowling the final over. He manages to take 2 vital wickets in the last 3 balls, and India wins by 1 run.
Incredible.
When the margin for error is a single run, what are the tactical mechanics of bowling those final deliveries?
This is where we separate raw pace from tactical genius. The pressure is immense because the fielding captain has to bring fielders inside the circle to prevent the single.
Right, which opens up massive gaps in the outfield.
Exactly. Miss your length by a millimeter, the batsman ships it for a boundary. But Pandya recognized a critical psychological flaw in the Bangladeshi batsmen Mushfiqur and Mahmudullah.
What was it?
Hubris. They wanted the glorious match-winning boundary. They didn't want a sensible single.
He weaponized their ego against them.
Spot on. Instead of bowling predictable Yorkers, which they were lined up to hit, he dragged his length back just a fraction. He forced them to hit across the line. They swung wildly, holed out to the deep fielders, and the game was saved.
That requires a heart rate of absolute ice.
It completely contradicts the narrative of an emotional, erratic player. He processed complex psychological geometry in the most stressful arena in the world.
And it wasn't a one-off. The statistical anomalies he produces are mind-bending. July 2018 against England, he becomes the first Indian to take 4 wickets, 4 for 38, and score over 30 runs in the same T20I, hitting 33 not out off 14 balls.
Elite.
And then in 2022, he does it to England again, maiden T20I 50 plus 4 wickets. To excel at both disciplines in a 120-ball game is incredibly rare.
Because the disciplines are fundamentally opposed energetically. Bowling fast depletes your fast-twitch fibers and spikes your lactic acid.
Right.
To then pad up and possess the rotational core strength to hit a ball 90 meters into the stands requires a physiological engine very few humans have.
Right.
He's the ultimate structural glue. Top order collapses, he accelerates. Frontline seamers leaking runs, he breaks the partnership.
But playing both roles demands a massive toll on the body. The sources document the severe physical breakdown he had during the 2021 T20 World Cup. He was expected to bowl his full quota, but his body just refused. He only bowled 4 overs the entire tournament.
Yeah, that was a rough patch.
India crashed out in the group stages, the scrutiny was intense, and he was dropped. From a physiological perspective, is the modern cricket calendar just a death sentence for a genuine fast-bowling all-rounder?
It's an absolute mathematical reality. The modern calendar requires athletes to peak for multiple franchise leagues, bilateral series, and ICC tournaments every 12 months.
It's non-stop.
Right. When you combine the hyperextension of fast bowling with the violent torque of power hitting, structural failure is an inevitability. The spine and knees just aren't designed to sustain that load year-round.
So the 2021 breakdown was a reckoning.
A painful but necessary one. The Indian management had to realize he's a finite resource. You can't play him in every meaningless bilateral series if you want him sound for World Cups.
Speaking of World Cups, his impact on the 50-over format is equally profound. He debuted in October 2016, immediately won Player of the Match. But the defining ODI moment has to be the 2017 Champions Trophy final against Pakistan.
Oh, what a chaotic match.
India is chasing a massive total, suffers a catastrophic top-order collapse. They are reeling at 54 for 5. The match is effectively over. The pressure is suffocating. And Hardik walks in and absolutely unleashes, smashing 76 runs off 43 balls.
It was a losing cause ultimately due to a mix-up and a run-out, but the psychological statement was undeniable.
Yeah.
He walked into a hopeless situation against a fierce rival and just refused to capitulate. He counterattacked when everyone else froze. And he backed that pedigree up in 2022 against England, taking 4 for 24 and scoring 71 runs in the same match.
But here's the most fascinating what-if of his career. While his white ball exploits are legendary, the sources outline these incredibly brief, tantalizing flashes in red ball Test cricket.
Test cricket tease.
Exactly. He makes his debut in July 2017 against Sri Lanka. In just his 3rd Test, he scores his maiden century. How did a player built for T20s adapt to Test cricket?
Well, that's the thing. He didn't adapt to Test cricket. He forced Test cricket to adapt to him.
I mean, he became the first Indian batsman to score a Test century before lunch.
Right.
And he set a record by scoring 26 runs in a single over. In a format where batsmen block for hours, he hits 26 runs in 1 over.
And this is where we see his tactical disruption. Traditionally, a Test match over is a micro battle of attrition. The bowler tries to hit a specific length hoping for an edge. By stepping out and hitting 26 runs, Pandya didn't just accelerate the score, he completely shattered the bowler's rhythm.
Because the fielding captain immediately panicked.
Precisely. They push the fielders back to the boundary to stop the bleeding. The moment those fielders retreat, the pressure is released. Singles become easy. It was an incredibly modern, aggressive approach to the game's oldest format.
Yet we haven't seen much of him in white since then. Was sacrificing his Test career just a required negotiation with his own body?
Absolutely. The math simply does not work. If 4 T20 overs break down his lower back, asking him to bowl 20 overs a day with a red ball and then bat would guarantee career-ending damage within a single season.
It's cold, but necessary.
Yeah, prioritize the white ball formats where his specific skill set generates the highest value.
But the reality of modern sports is that physical preservation means nothing if your life off the field is unraveling. An athlete's psychological baseline is tied to their personal life, and his life beyond the boundary has been incredibly turbulent.
The emotional load he's carried is immense.
Yeah. We know he shares a deep bond with his brother Krunal. But in January 2021, the family suffered a sudden, devastating blow. Their father, Himanshu, the man who gambled everything on their cricket, passed away from cardiac arrest.
Losing a parent is profoundly destabilizing for anyone.
Right.
But when that parent is the primary architect of your career, and you're forced to grieve while living out of suitcases in bio bubbles under the media's glare, the trauma is immense. You lose your true north.
And his romantic relationships have played out entirely in the public eye, too. He got engaged to Natasha Stankovic in 2020. They welcomed their son, Agastya, renewed their vows in 2023. But then, amidst the nightmare of the 2024 IPL season, intense speculation about his marriage dominated the tabloids, and they mutually separated in July 2024.
This is compound stress. The human brain can only compartmentalize so much trauma. You have the professional humiliation of your home crowd rejecting you, layered on top of the private dissolution of a marriage.
It's just crushing.
To face a 150-kilometer-an-hour delivery when your personal and professional life feels like it's collapsing requires stoicism that's almost impossible to comprehend.
And that level of public scrutiny isn't even new to him. We have to objectively look at the major controversy documented in our sources regarding his media appearances.
Right, the coffee with Kern incident.
Yes. We're strictly outlining the events and reactions as documented, taking no sides but recognizing its impact. In January 2019, Pandya appeared on the talk show Coffee with Curran alongside KL Rahul.
It was intended to showcase the new generation of cricketers, but it resulted in a catastrophic PR fallout.
During the interview, Pandya made several comments that triggered severe public backlash. According to the sources, he proudly discussed informing his parents of his first sexual encounter. He also stated he likes to observe how women move at nightclubs, likening his behavior to being, quote, a little from the black side.
The reaction was instantaneous and overwhelmingly negative. The public and media categorized his monologue as indecent, misogynistic, and disgraceful for a national team representative.
And the BCCI responded immediately. They deemed the comments crass and sexist, stating it was a clear breach of conduct. They literally pulled both players from ongoing tours in Australia and New Zealand and suspended them pending investigation.
Sent them home in disgrace.
Yeah, and the financial hit was real. Gillette immediately suspended their brand association with him. Pandya did issue a public apology, and the suspension was lifted later in January 2019.
What this timeline illustrates is the dangerous dichotomy of modern sports stardom. We demand these athletes be ruthless, unfiltered gladiators on the pitch. But the second they cross the boundary rope, the corporate machinery demands they transform into polished PR ambassadors.
It's a tightrope.
It is. The controversy proved how aggressively governing bodies and sponsors will react to behavior that breaches societal norms. A career can be derailed by a microphone just as easily as a torn ligament.
It's the reality of living in a glass house where every room broadcasts to a billion people. When you look at this entire timeline, the 2019 suspension, the loss of his father in 2021, severe physical breakdowns, the public separation, and the deafening boos of the 2024 IPL, how does the human mind not shatter?
You survive it by building an impenetrable psychological firewall. Oh. He had to violently separate Hardik Pandya, the public figure, from Hardik Pandya, the cricketer. When the public narrative becomes toxic, the pitch transforms into a sanctuary. Between the ropes, there are no tabloids, just the physics of a leather ball and a wooden bat. It's the only place he has absolute control over his narrative.
Which brings us back to that very sanctuary, Bridgetown, Barbados, June 2024, the T20 World Cup. Just weeks after crawling out of the wreckage of the IPL season where he was public enemy number one, the Indian management names him vice captain of the squad.
A masterstroke of man management.
Really?
Yeah, they recognized the IPL hostility was a franchise-specific tribal issue, not a reflection of his international utility. Naming him vice captain publicly validated his worth and insulated him from the domestic noise.
And he repays that faith with a dominant tournament. 11 wickets, 144 runs, at a strike rate of 150. But the true redemption arc is the final against South Africa.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, South Africa is chasing. The game is hanging in the balance. Hardik steps up and takes 3 crucial wickets, but 2 are the absolute game changers, Heinrich Klaassen and David Miller.
To understand the magnitude of those wickets, you have to understand the threat they pose. Klaassen and Miller are destructive finishers. They are engineered to destroy fast bowlers in the final 5 overs.
Right, Klaassen can hit good deliveries for 6 effortlessly.
Exactly. Removing them under extreme pressure requires supreme tactical execution. Pandya didn't bowl with desperation. He bowled with surgical precision. He forced them to hit it at the longest parts of the boundary, used the pitch dimensions as an extra fielder.
And then the climax. The final over. South Africa needs 16. The ball is tossed to the kid from Gujarat who was dropped for having an attitude problem.
Yep.
He executes perfectly, wins the World Cup for India. Following the tournament, he becomes the first Indian all-rounder to be ranked number 1 in T20 internationals. Plus, the first fast-bowling all-rounder in T20I history to complete 1,000 runs and 100 wickets.
When you dissect the psychology of that final over, you realize the beautiful irony of his career.
What's that?
The exact traits that made him such a polarizing, controversial figure, the raw, unfiltered hubris, the refusal to back down, the unshakable belief in his own superiority, are the exact same traits required to want the ball in that terrifying final over.
Wow, yeah.
An obedient, compliant player shrinks in that moment. Pandya thrived because he genuinely believes he's the main character. Bowling that over permanently immunized his legacy against the franchise criticism.
If you pitch this to a movie studio, a fallen captain, booed by his city, navigating a separation, battling a fragile body, who then returns to bowl the match-winning over to secure a World Cup, they'd reject it for being too cliché.
Completely unbelievable.
But that is the anatomy of his career. It's a profound, exhausting case study in survival. From shifting his entire bowling mechanics as a teen to surviving immense public backlash in franchise politics, his path is defined by a sheer refusal to stay down.
It's a masterclass in psychological elasticity. Being stretched to the absolute breaking point by scrutiny, politics, and injury, yet possessing the fortitude to snap back into championship-winning form when the stakes are highest.
And that elasticity is why this deep dive matters for you, the listener. You don't have to be an international athlete to understand this journey. We all face moments where we're thrust into difficult leadership roles surrounded by doubt. We all have to navigate bouncing back from public mistakes. We all know what it feels like to try and prove your worth when it seems like everyone is rooting against you. True redemption is about finding the stillness to execute your skills despite the noise.
That concept of the crowd's noise raises a fascinating question, though. It's the final thought I want to leave you with today.
Okay.
In the hypermodern era of franchise leagues, billion-dollar broadcast deals, and the instant vitriol of social media, has the relationship between a fan and an athlete become purely transactional?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. When we observe how quickly 40,000 people can turn on a player, booing them mercilessly, and then seamlessly transform back into weeping, adoring fans just weeks later when they win a World Cup. Are we genuinely cheering for the human beings on the field?
Right.
With all their complexities, flaws, and personal tragedies? Or are we ultimately just cheering for the brightly colored jerseys they happen to be wearing on any given day?
That is a phenomenal question that forces us to look in the mirror as fans. Because when you finally look closely at the true anatomy of a modern sports superstar, it turns out the bones aren't cleanly broken or whole. They're a complex, messy network of fractures, healed stronger in some places, constantly aching in others, but undeniably beautifully human beneath the uniform.